Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the conference and the final day. My name is Bree Kirsch, and I'll be the moderator for this session. Before we begin, we do have a few reminders. If you've been joining us, you'll recognize them. We do have a code of conduct that we'll adhere to for the conference. So I'll paste that in the chat now. And if you do run into any challenges, please contact us at our email, genainlibraries@gmail.com, with any concerns. Please be sure your microphone is muted. During Q&A, you are welcome to ask questions in the chat or the Q&A feature within Zoom. We will save questions for the end to make sure there's time for all our 3 presentations, and the session is being recorded. You can enable captions by clicking on the Show Captions button at the bottom of the screen. And I'll do a brief introduction of our 3 lightning sessions, including Alejandro Paz and Yaeli from MIT Libraries, DRC Hutchings from University of Alaska Anchorage, and Clarissa Moreno from University of Southern California. Please join me in welcoming our presenters. So Alejandra and if you want to start your presentation, you are welcome to do so.
Great, thanks. Can you all see the slides?
Right now we see your desktop.
Okay,
Perfect.
I think we're good now, right? Thank you.
Yes.
So hello, everyone. Welcome. So my name is Alejandro Paz, and my co-presenter is Yaeli. Today, we're going to talk about a workshop MIT Libraries presented earlier this year on a framework, presenting a framework for evaluating generative AI tools for research. So back in the fall of 2023, a member of an engineering educational program at MIT reached out to the libraries, specifically to our math, electrical engineering, and computer science librarian, to ask whether the libraries was planning on running any instruction workshops on the topic of working and integrating generative AI tools in the research process. So when this inquiry came in, our science and engineering librarian team had a discussion about this, and we decided that this was in fact an important topic to cover at the library. So we started working on organizing and running a workshop on this. So here are our colleagues that worked on presenting this workshop. And then here's and I, who are our co-presenters today. So our team, we decided, the way we planned this out is that we scheduled our workshop during the MIT MIT's winter break period, which in the Institute is frequently used for kind of academic and extracurricular activities that are available institute-wide. So we really targeted the whole Institute here, so students, postdocs, research staff, faculty, and so on. In terms of our preparation, I want to give a special shout out to the library team at North Carolina State University, who during our planning for this workshop met with us to discuss their own lessons learned on a similar workshop they had run last year. So their input was an integral aspect of our preparation. So I want to thank them. So for this workshop, we developed a framework for evaluating generative AI tools, and we came up with examples for applying this framework to specific tools, specifically specific tasks that you can apply these tools to. We also designed several ways of demonstrating these tools and getting the workshop participants involved in learning. So as far as which kinds of AI tools, we focus on tools for finding and sort of evaluating academic literature. We also cover tools that summarize texts. And we even went into several kind of subject-specific tools that are about, that are used for specialized research. So in terms of our evaluation framework, we broke it down into 6 questions. These are, what is the purpose of the tool? Where is the data that was used to train the tool sourced? what was the data, are there any costs, monetary or otherwise, to accessing the tool, any barriers to using it? How accurate or reliable is the tool? Is the tool one that makes your work more efficient? Does it save you time as a researcher? And also, and I think this is probably the most interesting one, is, will using a particular generative AI tool for a particular use limit or otherwise negatively impact your learning as a researcher or student? So I won't go into all the details of how we came up with these 6 questions for our framework, but I'll note that we found that getting concrete answers for all 6 for any particular tool or any particular use case was quite challenging. As I suspect most of you are aware, many of these tools are rather opaque in terms of how they work, both in terms of the underlying technology and also the policies of the firms or other organizations that make these tools. And in addition to that, it just, in general, it can be quite difficult to evaluate the appropriateness of using these tools in research, even tools that are specifically marketed towards that use. And so one more thing I'll note here is that in this slide, you can actually see some of our notes from our discussion on how to sort of structure this workshop, which we found was rather intellectually stimulating. So we identified several basic research tasks for which people would use generative AI tools, but we mostly focused on searching for information and summarizing papers in this workshop. But I do want to acknowledge that there were other kind of tasks that we identified that generative AI tools can be used for. So in the workshop, we started off by discussing the large language model-based chat tools, since these kind of LLM-based tools are really at the core of other several tools that are designed for searching and discovering academic literature. So I'm talking specifically about tools like Cite or Consensus. We also covered other tools. So seen here is Explain Paper, which is a text summary tool, and even tools like Undermine.ai, which is a tool that was developed by people affiliated with MIT. So in this workshop, we really wanted to, kind of cover our bases, but also kind of protect our reputation and maybe not make claims that we really didn't have the standing to make. So we had to, for example, balance providing enough technical background information to cover the material effectively, but also not trying to overstate our expertise. We also needed to adjust the content of this workshop to our audience, which came with varying levels of sort of underlying understanding of the topic. And so really, we wanted to stay in our lane. And so we kind of focused our workshop, we framed it as sort of co-learning with our audience and ourselves. So now I kind of wanted to go over some of the examples of how we applied the framework we developed for this workshop to various tools and how we demonstrated that live during our workshop that we presented. So in terms of evaluating like the sources of data that these tools use, we did some research and we actually presented on sort of the data sourcing for several popular lit review generative AI tools. So these tools were kind of designed for scientific research, and we found that in some cases, they're actually more transparent about how they work, and specifically some of their features than some of the other general LLM tools out there like ChatGPT. In particular, they were kind of transparent about the unique improvements that they made on top of these general purpose large language models. We also want to note that, a notable aspect about some of these tools is that they kind of had a special emphasis on biomedical and public health related topics in terms of how they conducted or assisted people with doing a literature search. And we found that was likely because the academic literature in these domains tends to be more open compared to other disciplines. And so that was an interesting detail that we found. And we kind of tried to, just articulate that, and also just the general question of how to how are these tools sourcing their data during the workshop. We also kind of discussed some of the monetary barriers to using these tools. Most of these have limited free access through trials, but otherwise, if you want to use them in depth, you do require a paid subscription. And that was something that we needed to note, that a lot of these tools work this way. So in terms of providing an example of how do you evaluate the accuracy of a tool, we used Claude AI as our sort of example tool. So what we did is that we showed how you can we gave some examples of formulating prompts that would use like a tiered set of questions to kind of probe the accuracy of a tool's answers. We also did something which we show here in the slide where we illustrated how a lot of these generative AI tools can actually be rather effective at giving correct answers to broader, more general questions about general topics, and even include citations. But even in this cases, and all the information that is given cannot be accurate as shown in the slide. But the point is that with more specific kind of questions, we did note that the accuracy of these tools tends to falter. So the more specialized the information, the more likely you'll get incorrect answers. In terms of the question of evaluating whether a tool might limit learning, we actually, for as an example, we used the explain paper tool. So we asked participants to compare an original sample of text with a summary that was generated by explain paper. And so we had them kind of think through the following questions, which were, is the AI generated explanation adequate? Was there any incorrect information in the explanation? And is there anything that was lost in the generated explanation? And so we kind of did this in like a live engagement setting where we kind of had the audience kind of live react. So this was, we also like generated we gave an example of generating an answer live too. So I think that was an interesting way of engaging with the audience on this question. And then finally, to kind of probe, how do you evaluate the purpose of a tool? We did this one tool called Agree1, where we looked at the mission statement of the tool that was on the website. And then later, we actually looked at sort of the underlying design of the tool. And we tested, asking it, we showed an example of the kind of answers it gives to then kind of evaluate whether the sort of self-assigned purpose or sort of identity of the tool was really justified based on the kind of outputs it gave or the way the tool was, designed and constructed. And then I just want to note that, one particular activity that we did with this workshop that I found was very fruitful is that we asked attendees to choose a particular tool we had showcased and formulate a question for that tool according to a template that we provided. And then we had them share that question in a shared spreadsheet so we could all kind of look at it. But then we had the audience ask a follow-up question for that particular tool. So these were, again, like chat-based kind of LLM tools. And then we had them add the following prompt at the end of that second question, which was, if you are uncertain, please reply with, I don't know. And so what we did here is that we wanted to kind of use the prediction algorithms of the tools to give an estimate of their own responses, which we felt was kind of a fun and novel way of evaluating the accuracy of the tools. And we got some good feedback from the audience about that particular exercise. So overall, I think we learned quite a lot through organizing and presenting this workshop. There's still a lot that we have yet to find out about these tools, and in particular, how people are using them. We think that applying this workshop is generally kind of a fruitful activity that can really help people like make better use of these tools. And we found that applied to both of ourselves as the librarians, but also the people who were learning with us during the workshop. And here are some other things that we kind of got from that workshop. One thing I want to note is that we did request feedback from the participants. So amongst other things, they mentioned that they really learned, methods for evaluating the tools. Some of them seem to really note that they learned a lot about sort of the limitations and how those limitations works for these tools. We also got feedback on what audience members would have liked to have learned in addition to this. Some people were very interested in prompt engineering in general. We had several people indicate that they were interested in the fine-tuning of large language models, which is an interesting topic that perhaps librarians could explore. And of note, I want to note that we did have one person give the feedback that they would have liked to have learned more about the environmental impact of these tools. And so as you note, training large language models can be very computationally intensive. And so that's a huge topic in terms of how this technology is ratcheting up demand for resources in the world. So in terms of like recommendations that we would make for students in particular, having kind of learned from running this workshop, we have a few listed here. I want to emphasize in particular, though, that generally speaking, students probably shouldn't use generative AI tools as their sole source of information or their sole
1 minute
source of
warning.
information discovery. And then finally, I'll note that, at the MIT, these tools are becoming kind of like ever more ingrained in the fabric of the institution's sort of discussions around research workflows and how people do work. And so we expect this topic to remain very salient in the future. And so, we really want to keep our eyes on this at our institute. And so we'd love to hear more if you have any questions about this. And so that's all I have for now. So thank you.
Thank you, Alejandro. And now we'll hear from DRC.
Thank you. Are you able to see my slides, Bree?
Yes.
Wonderful. So I'm DRC Hutchings, and I'm here to provide a brief overview of using generative AI for work related to open educational resources, or OER. This will be a whirlwind tour, and I'll provide a link to my slides at the end for your future reference. I hope to inspire you to think about how and whether you might use generative AI in this arena, either directly in your own work or in the work that you do supporting faculty. Let's jump in. Generative AI tools present some exciting opportunities for OER creation and adaptation, adoption, pedagogy, personalized learning, and opening AI. First, OER creation and adaptation. Generative AI has the potential to assist with creating better OER materials in less time. Tools can create first drafts of content for you to expand on, rework, and polish, edit or improve content you draft, including making it more concise, clear, and consistent in style, improve layout and design, translate works, and assist with improving ADA accessibility. Note that this goes beyond creating OER from scratch. Generative AI tools can be used to modify, supplement, or update existing OER, and it's beyond textbooks. They can be helpful for creating or improving ancillary materials to surround core course materials. This includes test questions, interactive elements, lecture notes, slides, and more. Generative AI can facilitate the process of adopting OER and other zero-cost materials in courses that previously used commercial materials. Faculty commonly cite the lack of available ancillary materials as a barrier to abandoning commercial materials, and AI has the potential to reduce that barrier when used to assist with their creation. In addition, AI can provide ideas for and draft detailed course outlines, unit-level learning outcomes, assignments, and other elements that come into course redesign. And to overcome the challenge of leaving behind a commercial publisher's homework system, which is another common barrier, AI may help replace some elements, including personalized learning components, which I'll talk about more soon. AI can be incorporated into OER-related pedagogy. Students can demonstrate mastery of the content, hone essential critical thinking and information literacy skills that are universally applicable beyond AI, and develop AI literacy. That is, the skills and competencies needed to effectively use and evaluate AI tools and content. Consider assignments where students apply knowledge while learning AI tools, like faculty creating, editing, or updating an OER textbook together with students using AI tools, or having students use AI tools to generate material on a topic, then evaluate the material by reflecting on what the tool included and excluded in the draft. They could go a step further and improve upon or correct that material as well. If your faculty are not feeling confident about working with students to create or modify OER or using AI with students, suggest they consider approaching this as a co-learning opportunity where they learn together with their students. Commercial homework systems often contain personalized learning elements, which can be very effective in helping students make academic progress. Generative AI has the potential to personalize learning as well. Tools exist that can provide detailed, immediate feedback to students as they work through material or apply what they have learned. They can provide unique data-driven learning plans, readings, or activities for each student according to their preference or performance. They can be used to create immersive learning environments. They can be a kind of virtual tutor, supporting students as they master the material through a sort of conversation. And there's also the potential to completely rethink textbooks. Instead of assigning static readings, students could be given a series of prompts to ask of a generative AI interface. Students ask follow-up questions until they feel confident in the understanding of that unit's content. Now let's talk bigger picture for just a moment. The best of generative AI is currently behind paywalls, which prevents people with limited financial resources from having the same kinds of access and receiving the same benefits as people with more resources. In other words, it creates an AI literacy divide. Universities have the opportunity to ensure free and equitable access to generative AI tools for all of our students. This could be done by licensing existing generative AI tools for students to use for free, or leading or supporting efforts to develop openly available or openly licensed AI tools. I see an opportunity for libraries and librarians to advocate for this. Now, let's consider some critical issues and potential pitfalls, specifically related to access, quality and bias, copyright, attribution, and a few others. Since these issues are relevant to any use of AI and our time is short, I'm going to move through them quickly. This is not meant to diminish their importance. Access is a core principle of open education and textbook affordability. The issue of access in the context of AI is multifaceted. First, equitable access to high-speed internet is an issue, especially for rural students, as well as students with limited financial resources. Earlier, I said that generative AI can aid with making materials accessible. On the flip side, AI tools and content they generate may be inaccessible for people experiencing disabilities. The cost of AI tools limits students' access to them, and the varying ability to pay contributes to the AI literacy divide. Look for tools that are available at no cost, but note that we must use caution relying on them because they may suddenly become fee-based at any time. We know there are quality issues around AI-generated content. It can contain inaccurate, outdated, or biased information. The problem of inherent biases are not specific to AI-generated content. It can occur in commercial textbooks and OER materials. However, generative AI not only perpetuates human biases, but amplifies them. Therefore, a major pitfall is relying on generated content without critically evaluating it, or failing to fix content that you plan to use or share elsewhere. Generative AI, and I cannot emphasize this enough, it cannot replace the subject matter expertise of a faculty member or the instructional design expertise of experienced faculty members or instructional designers. It is a tool and not a complete solution. Navigating copyright and Creative Commons licenses is central to all kinds of OER-related work. Failing to understand the evolving AI and copyright landscape is a major pitfall when using AI for OER. Here are some key points. The generative AI copyright landscape is still developing based on evolving legal understandings. Generative AI uses what it gleans from copyrighted works to generate content. And this is currently considered fair use, but that may change. In order to be copyrightable, a work must be creative and original and human authored. And understanding the copyright status of a work is essential because you can only apply CC licenses to work that you have copyright for. CC licenses are the most common way for identifying work as OER. So is AI-generated content copyrightable? It depends. In the US, content solely created by AI is not because it isn't human created or creative. It is in the public domain. For works with both human and AI-generated elements, only the human-created parts are copyrightable. If AI-generated content has been modified by human creativity sufficient to be considered a derivative work, it is copyrightable. How much must a work be changed to be a derivative? According to the US Copyright Office, there must be, quote, some minimal degree of creativity in the work, and creativity is broadly defined. Ultimately, regardless of the copyright status of a work, it is up to us to ensure that all work is being properly attributed and consistently model this behavior for our students. The humans who distribute AI-generated content are responsible for that content, certainly ethically and likely legally as well. Related to copyright is the issue of attribution. AI doesn't typically cite its sources, and if it does, it isn't necessarily a correct or full citation of the works it used. To make matters worse, generative AI can and sometimes does plagiarize. This means that you could be generating content based on copyrighted materials that you cannot cite to create a work that you will then put forth as OER. This sounds like it goes against the values of librarianship and open education. So it's a big thing to grapple with, and people will have to come to their own conclusion about how to proceed. AI-generated content lacks cultural and linguistic diversity, and when used to edit, it can also homogenize content. Data security and privacy are concerns. It's important to understand that anything you put online could potentially be scraped and included in a language model for AI. And certainly anything you put into an AI tool can become part of its knowledge base. And lastly, failing to declare the use of AI can have serious academic and professional ramifications for folks. So many of these pitfalls can be avoided by faculty using their voice and expertise to modify AI-generated content before it's shared out, critically evaluating content for themselves and with their students, especially when the end product will be shared out to others, using AI ethically, including clearly stating how AI was used when developing or sharing any content, experimenting with using AI tools. So be open to revisiting tools and strategies to see whether they are more useful for your needs later on, even if they aren't now. And lastly, stay informed on AI-related issues as things are changing rapidly in this new arena. Whether AI excites you, apologies, forgot my slide there. Whether AI excites you or scares you, whether you can't wait to get started using AI yourself or whether you'd rather not, I'd argue that ignoring or avoiding AI is also a pitfall. For better or worse, the common perception is that AI is here to stay, and it will only continue to shake up virtually every aspect of our work and lives. OER work is no exception. Lastly, my slides and that list of resources I flew through are available at this link, which I will add to the chat in a moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, DRC. And once you stop sharing your slides, then we will switch over to Clarissa's presentation.
All right, can you see that there?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Clarissa Moreno. I am one of the social and behavioral sciences librarians at USC. Oh gosh, I just paused my sharing screen. Sorry about that. I am the liaison to social work. Today, I'm just going to be discussing how I've been leveraging GenAI for curriculum mapping, specifically in information literacy. My hope for you today is that you are inspired to go explore AI tools, whether it's ChatGPT or another one of your choice, to curriculum mapping. A quick overview of today. Just going to cover the problems that I found, the instruction needs, how I mapped with AI, and finally, the next step. Just a brief note, I am an early career librarian. I am actually just ending my second year, not only in the profession, but in this position. I had inherited many presentations, instruction presentations, which I could not have been more happy to receive, given my limited experience. And essentially, I had no background in social work. So many of the instructors were requesting instruction. They were frequent flyers, I guess, and we're used to a very specific format. So my first year, I was going to keep this format in place while I learned the needs and the curriculum. But I did find quite a few problems with this current format. Like most of the one-shots that we know of, they incorporate way too many concepts. At one time, they don't provide meaningful experiences for the students, and they are superficial at best, at least from my experience. So at the end of this first year, I had surveyed both the faculty and the students, and I found, astonishingly, that 28% of the faculty had reported that they believed their students were coming in with prior knowledge or some sort of previous information literacy and were prepared. And so that led to only 14% of them actually teaching it in their courses. A few of them had expressed concerns that their students needed extra guidance in searching and locating these materials. So they didn't really know how. So even though they assumed they came in with this knowledge, it wasn't coming across in their work. And the other concern is if they bring a librarian in, is the information going to be overlapping from one course to another? Students, on the other hand, they felt, 72% of those students felt that they would be benefiting from instruction literacy, especially in those search strategies. Many would appreciate more asynchronous material in smaller doses rather than just one shot that provided way too much information at once. So I had determined that their needs would be requiring to be reintroduced or introduced to these fundamentals of information literacy in a way that was not redundant, and develop asynchronous materials that would also allow me to provide a deeper, more meaningful instruction that would align with the course. So the idea was that I would be piloting a program with fundamental courses, and again, with those frequent flyer requests, using AI to identify those recurring themes that would be found within those courses and develop these short interactive tutorials. So that would leave me in the classroom with a very focused instruction that was pertinent to the course and the objectives. I began with using ChatGPT. And the reason why I chose ChatGPT, it's not that I believe it's better than any other one. This was right when it had come out, so it's kind of just what I was used to. So I began with ChatGPT and asked it to provide me with the highest priority information literacy skills that were needed to successfully complete those assignments using the ACRL framework. So at the time, again, it was very new. It wasn't very personalized to me yet. It provided very basic responses that didn't really align with the scope of my project. I did not put the description of the assignment just because it was from that course and I didn't seek permission to put it on here. But the assignment was on professional wellness. So I took the information that it gave me and I did try to identify similarities. Here's that response, right? I'm not going to read through that, but it is very basic. It's saying they need to know how to search, which of course, I did know that. But I did take this information that it gave me and I was able to identify some similarities. So from this information, again, accessing information and information needed weren't really the frames that I was looking for. I couldn't really understand that. So I had to go in there myself and kind of look at what are some things that were identical throughout the courses. These are 4 of the courses that I had identified as foundation and I was going to build out. But my main focus was this 510 course that was the first semester course and absolute foundational. Once I had identified these, I worked to develop some asynchronous material for their learning management system, which was Canvas at the time. And the goal was to embed all of these, which is a lot, interactive tutorials into the class and organize them by assignment. So here in this photo, they had 6 assignments, right? And these are the different tools or interactive tutorials that would help them succeed with those specific assignments. And this was a lot. There were some faculty that were able to buy in and refer their students to doing these tutorials, and it worked well. I was asked to come into a couple of different courses with the students who engaged with this material, and many of these classroom visits were more of a discussion. They were more of a Q&A, group consultations, rather than me doing a standard demo with all of the orientation type of material. And ideally, I would have loved to do this for every single class, even just the foundational classes, but that buy-in to implement it into the LMS and build out all of them was overly ambitious. And in talking to some students, looking at how this is set up with the tools underneath it that are required, it looked overwhelming. But I remain hopeful. As there are changes to AI, I am continuing to develop and learn. My findings have led me to really evolve with it. So the next prompt, I have moved forward from this. I'm trying to build out a new shell. I've collaborated with a couple of different faculty, let's see, like three faculty members that are willing and wanting to put this into their new course shells now that we're changing learning management systems. So my future considerations, again, that I've already started trying to do is that prompting, as was mentioned, really be specific now that it has been evolving, because and including that subject specialty I found. Let's see. So because when you're putting in those that subject specialty, it's actually prompting better results. I began to play around with not only that subject specialty, but also prompting it to align with the standards for the profession for social work, because those responses were pretty basic. And that asynchronous material that I had developed was very superficial. So that was something I really wanted to steer away from. I'm only prioritizing 2, maybe 3 frames from the framework per class. So that way it's not so overwhelming when students are taking a look at it. And really identify within the context of not only assignment, but again, that competency that they're looking at. I've begun to prioritize them. So these are, again, some of the foundational. I've gone a little bit above, added a few more than I had initially wanted to, just so I can get a head start for when I am ready to move on. But I began to highlight and the priorities, so that way I can scaffold them as I move forward. So in semester 1, my focus right now for this coming semester for this pilot is for this 510 and 546. They have a couple of the same priority or frames that are really high up there, and that overlapping. I don't want to overlap that authority frame with 546 if they're going to be taking it in the second semester, if they've already taken it in the first one. So how do I really develop that? When I prompted ChatGPT with that additional information, this is the answer it gave me. It's very lengthy, but it highlights the importance of authority constructed and contextual. Granted, all students need to know this information and how to evaluate a source. But for that first semester course, rather than providing that standard instruction to adult learners where it would go over their heads, this provides me with that crucial information on how students can tie it and put it into practice, both while in school and the profession. So this will allow me to create that interactive tutorial and continue with those discussions rather than just coming into the classroom and just giving that standard demo. For early career librarians like myself, or even those changing specialties or looking to do curriculum mapping, I think that AI not only streamlines the process, but it can aid in developing that personalized learning. It enhances those learning outcomes by aligning the overarching course objectives, information literacy, and those competency standards for that profession. I've seen that it can allow us to be proactive in its use with using these tools, like both current and by predicting these future learning outcomes because of its predictive text. Finally, with the curriculum and profession standard constantly changing and evolving, AI curriculum mapping has really helped me, at least, or can help other educators easily adapt to these new resources, practices, and enhance those learning experiences by identifying those patterns that can really inform these new instruction strategies in a streamlined manner. Let's see. That was all for me. And I do have the slides. I forgot to write all that down on the last slide. That is it for me.
Great. Thank you so much, Clarissa. And I see that we had a couple questions already answered in the Q&As. We do have a few minutes left for questions if anyone has any additional questions. And I see Clarissa shared her link in the chat there as well. So please let us know if you have any questions. You can type them either into the chat or the Q&A feature, and we will have our presenters answer those for you. And I don't think I saw any in the chat at this point. Oh, Clarissa, do you want to share your link with everyone instead of just the hosts and panelists?
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that.
It's okay. I know there's multiple chats. Sorry, we didn't notice that. There we go. Now it should be available to everyone. Thank you. Well, while we're waiting to see if any final questions come in, I wanted to thank our presenters. I learned a lot from each of you, and I look forward to exploring some of the suggestions you gave us myself, and I hope everyone else enjoyed the presentations as well. And I still don't see any other questions at this point. So we'll give it just a minute to see if anyone does have any questions for our presenters. Otherwise, we can always end the session a couple minutes early. And do join us for the closing remarks if you have a little extra time in your day. It'll be very short. And Alejandro just posted the link to the slides from the first presentation. Thank you. All right, well, I'm still not seeing any additional questions, so we can probably just go ahead and end the session a little bit early. Again, thank you to our presenters, and also thank you to those that were able to attend the presentations. Thank you, everyone.